first of all, everyone, welcome back. Thank you for hanging out with us. We're going to jump right in. Today we have a nice session going prepared over here, the future of AP and how AI and automation are transforming agency finance. Yes, I love this topic. We actually touched on a lot of AI in the previous session, but from more of like the employee onboarding perspective and tools. But I'd love to jump in more on in the software AI automations, what we could do to improve our workflow. We spoke previously about really onboarding and maintaining your employees, and now we want to jump into giving them the tools. One of the last things somebody dropped in the chat was what's very important to employees is having the right hardware and software to keep them working really, to keep them working right, to keep them working at their best, and to keep them happy. So let's jump in and talk about that a little bit. Today we have on Theresa Contario from our partner AvidXchange, and we have Tobias Wolf on with you. Okay, just a quick reminder, we're going to have an awesome giveaway of a BrewMate backtop cooler to one of our lucky attendees after this presentation. So let's hang out and stay cool over here.
That's right. That's right. And I just dropped it in the chat to everyone so you guys could take a look at what that was. I wasn't as familiar. It's a backpack cooler. Cool.
Nice. Awesome. I hope I win it.
Yeah.
All right. It's awesome. Tobias, would you mind to jump on and introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. Would love to. Thanks, Ruben. So I am Tobias Wolf. I'm the managing partner at Modern Media Solutions. I spent well over 2 decades at agencies in the city, working at Emirati, Purist Lintas, which most people probably don't remember, J. Walter Thompson, and I spent a long time at Mindshare, working with some of their top clients. I joined Modern Media Solutions to bring kind of that same level of strategic expertise and innovation to a broader range of businesses. At MMS, we focus on delivering media strategies and cutting-edge digital marketing solutions and strategic consulting to companies of all sizes. So whether it's enhancing brand visibility, optimizing media spend, or driving growth through creative campaigns, or working on research like we did with you guys, we work hand in hand with our clients to create impactful and cost-effective solutions. And I think we're going to talk about one of them. And so we had done a white paper around automated billing solutions. And we interviewed about 10 lucky agency folks who were gracious enough to give us their time. And we learned a hell of a lot about the industry, not only in terms of, what they're doing today, but in terms of what their aspirations are for the future. And something, that's something that we were just touching on and kind of in that earlier conversation. And some of that is a bit on AI. I think they're still trying to get their hands on the foundation of it all and what automation means for them at certain agencies. But AI is certainly something that they're thinking about actively within that process.
Nice, thank you, Tobias. And Theresa, I'm actually excited to talk about that survey in a bit. Theresa, how about you? You want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. I can introduce myself and then jump into sort of the summary of the session, if that works.
Perfect. I love that.
Okay. All right, great. Perfect. So I'm Theresa Contario. I have been working in media finance solutions for 5 years. Before that, I was on the agency side, actually in the buyer's seat at an agency. So I was at APCO Worldwide, and then smaller professional services marketing firm, now called Fin Partners. And then moved over to the ad tech sales world, which I was at Rocket Fuel and what was Rubicon Project, but now Magnite. So I've kind of seen it from all angles. And I am just thrilled that all of you are here for this workshop today on how AI and automation are transforming the agency finance world. So, I mean, let's be honest, media finance isn't exactly known for being smooth or simple. And so if you've ever wrestled with invoice chaos, manual processes at your organization, manual reconciliation more specifically, or kind of felt like your systems were stuck in 2015, you're not alone. I talk to your peers every single day in my role here at AvidXchange. Today, we're digging into real agency data brought to you by Tobias, as well as a recent survey that AvidXchange did at the beginning of this year about agency trends. And we're going to actually unpack what's actually working, and get practical about how to simplify, scale, and stop duct taping your finance workflows together. I've got insights, examples, myth busting along the way. And we're super lucky to have Tobias joining us to bring his consulting lens and his former agency executive lens to the trends we're seeing across the industry. So with that, I'm ready to dive in to start with what the latest data says about where agencies really are in 2025. Ruben, are you sharing the deck or should I?
If you'd be able to share it, that would be awesome. Do you have it on hand?
I do.
Oh, that would be great.
Cool. Let me get this up. I think this will work. Do you see it?
It is loading. You got it. Beautiful.
All right. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So let's just jump in. Let me see if I can. Here we go. All right. So I'm gonna put this here at the front because I am by no means trying to call this a sales pitch, but I do want to kind of give you guys the lens at which we sit at. So we help agencies automate their back-end finance workflows. And so that includes everything from invoice to pay. And that means we have everything from invoice automation, ingestion, routing, being able to cut down on that manual entry. And then we also have a pay solution on the back end of that process. All in between that is your source of truth, which is Workamajig, of course. And we've built an extensive and exclusive integration with Workamajig over the last few years. They are a technology partner who thinks very similarly to us. We think about the customer experience first, and we want to help to automate as many functions of the finance workflow as possible. But with that said, like I promised you, let's get into the results of the agency financial health survey, as well as we're going to weave in some key trends from the survey that Tobias did as well with us last year. I'm sorry, this keeps popping up. Let me.
Oh, yes, here's the survey I wanted to hear about. Beautiful.
That's right. Here it is. So, so we had 156 decision makers at U.S. media and advertising agencies take this survey. It was understanding the challenges, opportunities that media agencies are facing today. And then what we were able to do is compare this to prior years. We started this survey during COVID. I think our first year we had it out was 2020. It was a reflection on what agencies across our portfolio were doing in order to kind of maintain sanity during that time. And we released it then. So it's kind of cool to see some of the results of the same questions asked, you know, nearly 5 years later. Let me there we go. So here are the 5 takeaways from the trends here. Strengthen cash flow. Who doesn't want that as an agency owner and leader, right? We also see, and I actually was just at a dinner in New York last night where I was talking with folks who were saying that their customers are still asking them for 120-day payment terms. So we're still seeing the rise of extended payment term asks across our advertisers coming at us as agency owners and executives. And so the key technology advantage here is better cash flow visibility, forecasting through tools, through automation tools. the other sort of key takeaway that came through was centralizing and standardizing finance operations. That's like exactly what we're going to talk about a little bit today, but we're finding, and then Tobias, you can talk about this in a minute because we'll break it out, but there's a patchwork of systems and processes on the back end that are leading to inefficiencies and multiple systems not talking to each other and sending data. So it results in errors and slower than we would like work, and potentially that human keying in error.
Yes, lack of integrations.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. Or even integrations that exist that aren't working the way that we think they should be, right? So anybody can sort of just send files back and forth, but that's like, do we call that an integration? Right. So at this stage, probably you could ask for better. Automate invoicing and reconciliation. So I think we'll see this a little bit here too. A number of agencies are looking to start doing this. And I think only a year or so, I know there's some maybe legacy invoice solutions out there, but no one has really figured out how to automate the entire invoice to reconciliation to pay workflow for the media industry, us included. We're still continuing to iterate on the invoice to pay process that we rolled out last year. But agencies are starting to take a stab at, okay, at least my team doesn't need to spend their time keying in invoices anymore, right? So let's at least tear that one off, right? But they're starting to look at just automating parts of the invoice process. We all know it's super complex, and each agency seems to do their reconciliation in a different way. So it's hard to create automation tools that fix this problem. The fourth item is improve KPI tracking and insights. I mean, this is just a result of the patchwork systems and processes. When you don't have all of your invoices in one place, it's very hard to pull together your current total liabilities for everything that's owed at one moment in time. That's one example of plenty of others. But also, how long is it actually taking for my people to key in these invoices into their systems? We're finding that not a ton of people have true KPIs to even stack against to say whether or not adding automation would improve by X% or save X time. We're having to kind of help make those business cases for agencies and finance teams.
Nice.
And the last trend is around modernizing systems and building trust in tools. I think adoption is hard, and it's always been hard in media. People have done things for the way they've done them for 100 years. And it is very difficult to say, oh, now all of a sudden you have this tool that you're going to start using instead, right? That's just part of it. And then you've also got these spaghetti, I call them spaghetti because they're very hard to untangle processes that you're trying to modernize as well, which it takes a lot of effort. Change is hard. It takes a lot of effort to do. Those are the top 5 takeaways. Ruben, Tobias, do you guys have any
For sure. I did a full webinar on adoption hesitancy.
Yeah.
It was a full hour of just going through fears that are holding people back from making the changes they know they want to make, they know they need to make. And it takes a big step to make those changes. So I definitely get that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Tobias, how about you?
Yeah, I think there's a number of issues, and it depends on the size of the agency. I think so. I think, smaller agencies, mid-sized agencies are a bit more nimble and are a bit quicker to kind of change the status quo of things because it's frankly easier. There's less of a cumbersome process to go through to do that. But once you start getting into size, and even at some of the smaller ones, I think there's integration issues with legacy systems that you mentioned. There's there's a lot of complexity in the media ecosystem that drives a lot of that hesitancy. And that is also stopping, I think, that end-to-end perfection, I don't want to call it perfection because perfect's the enemy of good, but you know what I'm saying? It's stopping that end-to-end flow because there's so much dynamism from media partners in the ecosystem, and it's very hard to reconcile that and get everybody on board. And then Ruben, what you talked about is really fear of job displacement. Like there's just fear in the system that this is going to change my job or put me out of a job. But the fact is that evolution and change only builds you up and makes things better, just like with all things in life. So, and then there's just general inertia to change management. And I think you're going to get that in any, particularly legacy organization, where, as Theresa said, you have a lot of legacy employees that are very comfortable and used to doing things a certain way. And so new things become frightening. But again, it's we should never be afraid of change and innovation, like we talked about, mixing old innovations with new innovations to create incredible things that open up new pathways for business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that you touched on fear, because also at the conference that I was at yesterday, it was it almost turned into like a whole AI workshop, right? And like I think that's like what, like, we're trying to push AI hard into the media advertising world. And like the job displacement piece, it's like, if you don't know, or if you're not incorporating AI into your job today, you should be, or you should be dabbling with it a bit. It's a great jumping off point if you hate looking at, a white or blank screen, right? When you start, it's like a better screen to look at least it prompts you. So like with anything that you're doing, email, summaries and things like that, it can really be helpful. And in the same way, so can a tool that grabs all of the information that you were going to type in and types it in for you, so that you can finally get to the coding piece, which is the actual job of invoice management, right? So you can get to that faster and do your job faster, leaving more room for you to breathe, walk your dog, or do something more strategic for the business. So I think you're totally right. And I think we'll see some of that come up in the results of the survey as well. The priorities that came out of the survey, never have I ever seen this survey come back without revenue growth as the #1 priority. So if anyone forgot what we're here doing, we're trying to increase sales, increase the amount of budget that we have per customer, and grow that revenue bottom line. And that obviously is ever more important in a year like 2025. We've got the secondary piece is data protection and security. I think this comes up as one of the fear points for AI adoption as well, right? Like, is my data secure? Is my information secure, et cetera? But also just, in kind of the world we live in, I see a ton of this coming up on the payment side, payment fraud, as sort of an inherent, thing to make sure you're locked in on, and making sure that you have the protections in place to protect your agency. And then the third priority is client acquisition, which I think is very tangential to revenue growth, right? If you're acquiring new customers, you're growing your revenue. I like to say here, though, that while client acquisition and business development is super exciting and is also part of invigorating the agency, growing the current customer base that you have is also mutually as satisfying as well. You can win big deals within your current customer portfolio. Cool.
Yes, definitely agree.
Yeah. All right, let's see. So 90% of agencies say technology advances and automation will positively impact their agency operations. This sort of goes without saying, but how many of you are doing this? How many of you are taking pitches with technology partners, or going online to YouTube and figuring out how it is that I can prompt ChatGPT to get me the information that I need to do my job more efficiently. So everybody's thinking about this. They say that they're looking for technology advances, but how many people are actually doing it? What are, I mean, Ruben and Tobias, like, what is your reaction to that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with your thought that a lot of people are thinking about it. I'd continue to say that a lot of people are talking about it. I hear a lot of chatter about it. But when it comes down to it, I don't see nearly as much actually getting done than what's being talked about.
Yeah.
I think education is definitely a big piece over here. People don't know how to use it. They just know there's these big potential tools out there, but they don't practically know how to make use of them. So I think that's definitely a big factor.
Yeah. I hear a good excuse that's like, oh, I don't know if my company allows me to use ChatGPT yet. You know, it's like, no, but no, I don't think anyone's gonna act like, I think you just gotta go, right? Or like get on your if your co-pilot exists, then your company allows it, right? So
I mean, I think there's a lot of aspiration, but I think the throughput is fairly low, and there's still a huge reliance on kind of legacy systems. And you know, a lot of it goes back to what we talked about. I mean, there's a lot of inertia, and it gets worse the larger the organization that you're in because of the lack of decision-making rights. You know,
yeah.
so everybody's got aspirations to improve their workflow and the ways that they work for their team. But when it comes to actually the rubber hitting the road and making the decision, it's very hard to figure out how we can do that at pace and then institute those changes at pace. In terms of AI, look, AI is an amazing tool. It's amazing, amazing. I love it. I use it all day, every day. And it's not going to displace anybody. It's going to make good people great, and it's going to make okay people good. And it's, you know, it frees up creativity, and it makes people better if you know how to use it right. And the same thing is true for this process. I think that agencies are wary of it because it's very expensive to have a locked contract where ChatGPT isn't an open source for the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you're a small company, you can do that. But if you've got a license, you know, 750 people on the ChatGPT, that can get a bit cumbersome. And I think that that's what's stopping a lot of organizations from really signing up immediately or having their employees dive in because of those fears of security, which are real. And they have to figure out with the providers how to create kind of a locked, you know, a ring-fenced area around their organization where that information doesn't creep out to competitive organizations. And so it's a real fear. And I think it's just a matter of time before kind of some very expensive solutions are put in place to solve that problem.
That's
For
super
sure. Yeah.
interesting.
Sherry just dropped in the chat that they embraced it recently. They've been doing deep dives into building some GBTs that have saved me tons of time and mundane tasks. Yes, I love that, Sherry. That's awesome. Guys, yeah, just a quick note, if anybody wants to drop some questions in the chat or the Q&A, definitely welcome to.
Yeah, please.
I was actually, to myself, I was very surprised when I saw this. Only 90% of agencies say technology advances and automation will positively impact their agency operations.
Only, yeah.
Who are the other 10%?
No?
I don't know. It must have been a misfire on the survey, Ruben. I don't know. Sometimes, you know, you gotta.
Actually, I mean, I have a comment on that, which is again, I keep referring to this conference I was at yesterday, but there was an AI session where there were two teams, Team Blue, Team Red, who were both they were masked. Who was AI? Who were humans? And they both came up with the creative brief. A lot of people in the room were scared to choose the creative brief that was done by AI as the better one. Who cares if it's the better one? Just say it's the better one. But they couldn't because they were like, is this AI? And if it is, I don't want to give AI the credit. So I think it was actually like, so I wonder if this has to do with like, technology advances might not impact the agency operations. I mean, this is operations positively because maybe it's around loss of control, or like maybe there's, yeah, go ahead, Tobias.
I just find it so strange. I find that so strange because that sounds like it's coming from somebody that hasn't used AI extensively. AI didn't create that brief. A human with AI access created that brief and told it what to do, and AI made it easier and faster and probably polished it up for them in a quicker way than sitting at a conference room table with 20 people for 2 hours trying to do the same thing. That's what AI did.
You're right. And I think the discussion in the room was fascinating because people were just like really gung-ho. They could not do anything but try to figure out like which one was which, right? But they kept trying to like be the detective. But ultimately, you're right. There were humans behind the AI brief, and they had spent as much time as the humans who were writing it themselves, who couldn't use technology, which doesn't exist anymore, right? But they spent the whole amount of time, but they used like 10 different AI technologies, like training one to write a brief and all of this, right? So it's quite extensive. It's almost the same amount of time went into both of them by humans. So you're right, like the amount of time was maybe the same. The effectiveness of the brief, potentially was better. Research could be done really fast on one, whereas the other had to use almost the whole time on research, right?
Well, I think our industry is interesting. We get on these tangents about certain topics and it like spins on its own, right? And this is one of them. AI, people are equating AI to a robot, a thing like a human-like being that's going to replace every human. It's not that. It's a tool. We were just talking about it. It's like a new and improved hammer. AI is the new way to search the web. AI is the new way to get all that research that you would have spent 3 hours searching into Google for. You get that in 3 minutes. So if like that's what it's doing. It's a new tool for you to be able to access your brain, frankly, in a much more efficient and quicker way, and see that output come to fruition in a much quicker and rounded and holistic way than you would have done previously. So, to me, that's how I see it. And I just find it funny. We've had all these conversations about in-housing and about automation and about now AI, and it's going to destroy everything, but it's not true. It's just it's going to change everything. And that's where all this consternation comes from. It's the fear behind the change. But the change is good because it's just a tool that makes your job easier and makes you better. That's the way, at least the way I see it today. Call me in 3 years. Maybe it's the robot that's taking my job, but I don't know.
Maybe, never. And anybody, please do feel free to chime in the chat. We're kind of riffing on some of these slides, but we're hoping for hoping for some conversation from you guys too about what you're thinking about this. And I think what this says overall is that you as agency owners, leaders, finance practitioners, I think it's almost expected in your jobs at this point to come up with new ways to operate your business, and you're the owners of that. So if you're the one who shows your leaders that you're looking into this and this would make you more efficient, odds are it's not. I mean, I know, Tobias, you said there's for some of these much larger organizations, there's massive investments, but for some of the tools we're talking about here, there's not that much, investment, but it can make you much more powerful.
Yes, I love that.
So I think this is where we were headed with like fear. Are you open to invest in new technology? So nearly all respondents are interested in adopting new technology to automate invoice processing and payments, which is, of course, these are, it's biased because this was the information we wanted to know, right? As a finance tech company. So these are the key ones that we asked customers about. But this moved slightly up As AI, I think, and automation and the talk of automation has been coming into full sight, most people are showing a lot more interest in automating those back office processes. We probably should have put the 25 versus 24 or otherwise results in here, but it does certainly show that, more people are willing to go with payment automation solutions than they are invoice solutions. And I think it's also because of what we talked about earlier too. You've got complexity there. You've got fragmented processes. You're not sure that there is even automation to implement. But kind of to your point earlier, Ruben, like, why isn't this? Yeah, 100% of people are interested in adopting technologies that are going to help them solve invoice automation, period.
Yeah, exactly. Like the somewhat open is something that I totally get. Not everyone's ready to jump on it. They're waiting, they're waiting to see other people's experiences, which is, it's a fair reaction. But the ones that are not open or neutral, but it's interesting. Like this is helpful.
Yeah, right. It also could be like, maybe they were just like, don't call me. That could be too. So small. Okay. This is a big one. And this one, Tobias, I'm gonna tap on you a little bit to tell us some of the stories from the folks who you spoke to during our large white paper research that we did last year, which is, 6 hours is low. From some of the anecdotes you kind of showed me, it takes a ton of time for media companies. Anybody who has media invoices in their organization or as part of their portfolio, it takes a ton of time to reconcile. And if it doesn't, then you've chosen not to fully reconcile it because it's complex or it's difficult to be able to do it with the amount of hours that you have. And so, Tobias, on this one, can you tell us some stories about, or a story about, folks who, they found that they actually had to just staff up, and they were just like, okay, staffing up just to manage the invoice reconciliation process?
Yeah, well, I think that is the status quo that we were talking about, which is really throw more bodies at the problem, which is really throwing money at the problem, not solving the root cause of it. And I think, look, it depends. Again, you're going to hear this trend from me, and I don't want to sound redundant, but there's a difference in this area between smaller organizations, mid-sized organizations, and large organizations, and that goes all the way down to their readiness to adopt these systems, but also the time it takes for them to reconcile. And again, if you're talking about a big organization, right, 75% of respondents spend more than 6 hours. So, gosh, look at the ones that are spending 11 to 20 hours. Now, if you've got 50 people in your department spending, and just half of them are spending 11 to 20 hours, which we heard at larger organizations, dealing with this, because, essentially larger organizations have a matrix system of different departments that are working on bits and pieces of things, and kind of it goes along the assembly line. Those are a lot of hours. And I think that, the story that I would talk about is every agency's desire with automation, to kind of to free up their people in a number of different areas, whether that's increased efficiency and productivity, or accuracy and fewer errors, or faster invoice processing, better visibility, etc. So look, some organizations are spending an exorbitant amount of time on this, and usually they're tied to legacy processes, ways of working, and systems, and haven't figured out how to fully automate even pieces of the pie. And then, other organizations were much more advanced, much more proactive in that area, seeing, they were able to make, again, size matters, so they were able to make the decision quickly and implement that decision quickly to see the benefits, or at a minimum, test it. And so I think that, you know, for those folks that are using automation, I mean, you're talking about cutting that 6 to 8 to 10 hours down to 1, you know, and what does that do for your people, right? Look at all those hours freed up for your folks that are going to focus on things that are hopefully focused on growth and not maintaining the growth that you've already established within the system. Yeah, you know, so you want to cut that time down. You want to free people up for business growing activities, and certainly automation does that. It's proven. We heard that from the folks that we spoke to. And speaking about AI can only speed that up, because AI is going to tell you, you're going to ask AI, what discrepancies do I have this month? And you're going to get a readout of what they are and where they're at and how late they are, all in one view without having to go search through different server files and different areas and different clients and all that sort of things.
Yeah.
I just think
And
that this area is huge.
And I have to, I mean, I obviously agree. That's where we're investing now as AvidXchange. We're trying to solve the media invoice reconciliation workflows. But I also think that we spoke a little bit about this as a, I sort of wanted to go as far as like, could you as an agency say that your finance operations is something you could bring into a new business pitch? Right? And is it something that you could go in and say, hey, customer, one thing I'm not going to do is late bill you. One thing I'm not going to do is not be able to provide you all of the backup for all of the media I'm running at any given time for you. Because if my invoice reconciliation, it's not just about invoice reconciliation. No. It's about buttoning up your back-end processes so you can show customers that you're running a well-oiled business.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, we talked about these things previously as kind of table stakes, right? But a lot of agencies, you know, maybe don't approach it that way. But these are the foundations of brilliant basics, you know. And if you can go into a client situation and kind of talk to them about how, you know, we're so committed to getting these basics right, that frees us up to do the things that you're really focused on. You know, this is what it means for you, not only from a productivity of us standpoint, but potentially from a, you know, savings standpoint, efficiency standpoint, et cetera, on fees or on anything. And it, you know, not to mention, you know, the subject of getting bills late, or agencies having to eat bills because they came in 6 months late and they didn't catch it on an accrual. And all of a sudden, you know, they're caught with $1 million bill, and the client doesn't want to pay it, and the vendor's not going to own it. So guess who owns it, right? So those are the things that can be dealt with, you know, with automation, and you know, assure yourself and your clients that these aren't going to be issues moving forward. And I've seen these issues over multiple clients in my lifetime, sometimes causing serious problems within the agency, you know. And it's just because it is table stakes, it's like a crack on the wall that if you don't patch it up, it just, the crack gets bigger, and then you've got water leaking in, and, you know, you've got to get a bucket, and then you've got to call a plumber, you know. So you don't want to have to do that.
Right. That's great. I love that. Yeah. This is it. Inaction due to fear. We just
I was waiting for that one.
Yeah, we just see a ton of folks who want to do it, are gonna take a little dabble in trying to find out about it, but like, it's gonna be hard for 2 months until we stand this up or do this differently, or we're not sure how much of an impact it's really gonna make to the organization, or you know, plenty of excuses. But we know that folks have put some automation in their invoice process, but only 10% have fully automated the invoice process. That could also be due to the fact that the full invoice process isn't like possible to be fully automated yet. But we have to start somewhere as like an industry to start automating these back-end office tasks. And you know, it also looks like automation levels for invoice are lower than those for payments. And I think that's just a product of like many customers that I've spoken to didn't know some of these technologies for media specifically, or for their organization even existed. But we're building them now, and now's the time to kind of get your voice heard about what you want to see to help us fix the problem and create a media specific solution that'll sort of change the way we do this as an industry. Awesome. Let's see. I think I
Nice,
have
like that.
two more.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Just a quick question. Going back to that fear, I mean, I guess I keep getting back to it. The fear of change. Do you think that education around available software will make it easier for people to be open to implementing new software?
I think you have to hear it from your friend.
Got you. Like a recommendation, not just hearing it that it's out there.
Yeah. I think you can kind of see it, but you can't totally tell how it's going to work for you. But when you see a friend who does what you do and they're using it, I think that helps. So maybe it's more about like the folks on the line. If you guys want to raise your hands and say, hey, I'd love to share a little bit about how we're automating X in our invoice process or X in our back-end finance workflows. I think that would really help. That's like a good ask for the community here.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the other thing on that is if it's a friend, you know, it's more possible than someone who like, you don't really know if they've done like, you know, went to school for this or like are some like an engineer on the side, you know, you're like, what does it take? Right. But if you kind of know that someone in your same shoes is doing it, I think that gives you that comfort. So
yeah, I think it's trusted, familiar use.
Yeah.
Trusted, familiar use cases are going to help. And I think that we touched on this earlier. Part of this issue is perfect is the enemy of good. Teresa, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Everybody's like got this wild dream and aspiration of end-to-end AI-driven automation. We're gonna get there.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there. But that's like me saying 15 years ago that I'm not going to use Google search because I'm waiting for AI-driven search.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to use the phone book instead. It's literally that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like help us help you. You know, let's start as an industry together, as an ecosystem, automating the processes that we use so that we can move further and faster along this pipeline to automate the full end-to-end process. But nobody's going to be able to figure it out unless we're all learning together. And unfortunately, that's going to be the process, just like it has been with most, you know, advanced technologies.
Yeah, I think
like that.
I think there's actually, I mean, Ruben, I just came up with our next webinar idea, which is like, you know, use cases from some of our mutual customers who are using some of these tools, but also I keep coming back to that other idea where like invoice reconciliation is sort of what we're talking about here, automating payments, but it's like, it's bigger picture than that. It's going to improve your business. And if you can also improve your visibility into the invoices that are coming into the business, the finance side of things, it's like going to improve our industry. I should have put it in this deck as well, but I'm happy to send this around if anyone is interested. But AvidXchange oversees 8 different verticals, but we have, I believe it's 30 different industries that we're making payments for and automating payments for. And it's a fun chart because it shows the average days that it takes other industries to pay their invoices. Media, every other invoice, 15, 30 days. Media is 86 days.
Wow.
Like, it's egregious. It's like, it's just the sequential liability nature of our business. It's this like, I'll pay you after I get paid. My advertiser's late, so I'm late. it squeezes the entire ecosystem. No other industry operates like this. And it's
Imagine
like,
if a manufacturer said, I'm not going to pay you for this widget until I sell the widget to Bob.
no,
No
doesn't
way.
work
Yeah.
like that. So I'll share it. I should put it in every appendix of every deck that I do, I think, because I always end up bringing it up. The point of all of this isn't like, come buy AvidXchange. It's like, guys, I'm serious. We have to fix this industry, or like there isn't going to be an industry. Like we're just commoditizing the thing if we keep letting it go like this. So it's like automate where you can, so we can start focusing on like smarter, more strategic ways of running our businesses.
Yep.
That's where this is all going. So I kind of like gave you the philosophical, like that's what the grand plan in Theresa's mind is. But that's where I'm going with this, is that if you start with the finance departments, you make yourselves more efficient, you can be freed up to move your businesses in a more positive direction, improve your relationships with your suppliers in that way. It makes it a better place to continue seeing this, $300 billion industry that we work in. I think I'm running up to time, Ruben.
Yeah, we're getting close.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me see. I've got one more slide here. I mean, we already talked about most of these things, right? It's like it's sort of this is the larger expectation that comes from automating your tasks and providing you more time in your day, clearing you up to do more strategic things, and just enhance your business and life experience. And now,
Jill Wiz, do you mind to quickly drop in the chat where you're from and what agency you work for? We got ourselves a winner.
All
I
right.
love that. Congratulations.
Cool. Oh, I thought it was a backpack cooler. It's like a cold brew, or what is it? Is it wine? There's a woman.
That looks so cool. I gotta check out what it is.
Looks like some cold margaritas.
Roommate.
Margaritas in there.
I get it now. Back tap. All right. This is cool. Awesome.
Amazing, Jill. Reach out to me if you don't mind. I'm going to drop my email address in the chat. Reach out to me. And yes, we definitely will get your cooler your way. Thank you very much to AvidXchange. That's awesome.
Love it. Love it. You're jealous. Okay, Sherry, I can get you one too. Give me a call. Nice. Perfect.
Wow. Congratulations. That is awesome.
Very cool. Very
amazing. Cool. Thank you, Theresa. Thank you, Tobias. That was awesome. Guys, any last questions before we let them go?
And huge thanks, Ruben, to you for putting all this on, for putting this whole series on. I know that there's been a ton of activity from, it's such a cool community, the Workamajig community. You guys are, a close-knit group of folks, always knowledge sharing. So I'm grateful to have been able to be a part of it today.
For sure. Thank you, Theresa. Thank you, Tobias. It's a pleasure to have you guys on. And yes, definitely before we close out, I hope to see you guys back next week. We have Mike McGee on process improvement and change management. And then we got actually two of our power users, Brooke, and we have Mohammed together with Lynn Porter to discuss strengthening agency success. Brooke, thank you for joining us today also. Nice to see you over here. Yeah, we definitely look forward to seeing everybody next Thursday, same time, same place.
Perfect.
Amazing. If anybody wants to connect with Theresa, she just dropped her email in the chat, so quickly grab it. If not, you know how to reach me, and I'm definitely happy to make a warm introduction. They've been awesome partners. It's been a pleasure working together. The integrations are growing and getting better every day. And it's so nice to have you. Thank you, Tobias, for coming and sharing all that knowledge with us. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tobias. Thanks, Ruben. We'll talk soon, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for joining us today.
Bye.
Bye-bye.